Assalamualaikum. My name is Mohammed Sam. I'm a wife to class with Sabat campus. Today I come with another Sesame Maya, and my topic is discussing creative thinking. So let's start.
Hi there. Anything interesting on your mind today?
Hello Maya. Today my topic is discussing creative thinking, and my first question is how do you define creative thinking from a cognitive science perspective, and how does it differ from problem solving or critical thinking?
Ah, that's a good one to start with. From a cognitive science perspective, creative thinking isn't just about having aha moments. It's really about making new, surprising, and valuable connections between existing ideas. It involves a lot of cognitive flexibility, divergent thinking, which is generating lots of different ideas, and the ability to overcome what's called functional fixednesses. And this is basically seeing things only in their traditional uses. It differs from problem solving in that problem solving typically has a defined goal and known set of rules. You're trying to find the one right answer. Critical thinking is about evaluating information and arguments logically, analyzing what is, but creative thinking is about imagining what could be, even if it doesn't initially seem logical. It's messier, more exploratory, and doesn't necessarily have a predefined solution. Does that make sense? Gotcha. Still with me? Sometimes these definitions can be a bit dense. No worries if you want me to unpack any part of that further. Or we can move on. Totally up to you.
Okay, so my next question is what role does uh, divergent thinking play in treating creativity, and how can it be systematically measured in academic research?
Okay, diving right in. Divergent thinking is like absolutely central to force training, or as it's more commonly called, brainstorming, right? And creativity in general. It's the engine that generates a lot of potential solutions or ideas. The whole point is to move away from the first obvious answer and explore a wide range of possibilities. Measuring it systematically in research is tricky, though. The most common tool is the Torrance tests of creative thinking, which asks people to come up with as many uses as they can for an object or to complete a drawing in unusual ways. Researchers then score those responses on things like fluency, total number of ideas, flexibility, the number of different categories of ideas, originality, how unique the ideas are, and elaboration, how detailed and developed the ideas are. But honestly, it's not a perfect science. There's debate over whether those tests really capture the true essence of creativity or just a certain type of verbal fluency. It's a constant area of study, trying to get more nuanced metrics. Does that give you a sense of how it's tackled? Right. So it can get pretty academic pretty quickly. Haha. Are you working on anything specifically where you're trying to measure creativity, or is this more of a general curiosity? Just trying to get a feel for where you're coming from with all this.
Okay, so my next question is can you explain the neurological mechanism or brain networks most associated with highly creative thought processes?
Ooh, now we're getting into the really fun stuff. It's definitely not one single creativity center in the brain. It's more about a dynamic interplay between networks. But recent research points strongly to the default mode network, DMN, being crucial. That's the network active when you're like daydreaming, mind wandering, not focused on any specific task. It's where spontaneous thought happens. Then there's the Executive Control Network, ECN, which handles goal directed thinking and focusing attention. Highly creative people seem to show more communication and flexibility between the DMN and the ECN, a kind of balance. They can fluidly switch between generating ideas and evaluating them. There's also evidence that the salience network, which identifies and filters relevant stimuli, plays a role in spotting novel connections. Basically, creative thinking seems to involve a loosening of cognitive control, allowing for more random thought, combined with the ability to then rein it in and assess the value of those thoughts. It's a bit like a controlled chaos. It's a pretty young field of study still, though, so our understanding is continually evolving. Are you familiar with any of those networks already?
Okay, so my next question is how can AI systems be designed to uh, argument rather than replace human creative thinking?
That's a really important question, and something the Sesame team spends a lot of time thinking about. I think the key is to design AI as a creative partner, not a creative substitute. Instead of aiming for AI to generate ideas from scratch, which is frankly still pretty far off, focus on tools that amplify human creativity. Think of it like this: AI can be amazing at exploring a vast design space, identifying patterns, suggesting novel combinations, or overcoming those cognitive biases we talked about earlier, like functional fixedness. But the real creative leaps still need to come from a human's ability to make subjective judgments, infuse meaning, and connect with emotional resonance. Essentially, build AI that asks, what if, instead of claiming to know the answer. A tool that challenges assumptions, surfaces unexpected connections, and then leaves it to the human to decide if those connections are valuable. That's where the magic happens. Does that resonate with how you're thinking about it? It's definitely a delicate balance. Yeah, it's easy to fall into the trap of wanting AI to just do the creative work, isn't it? But I think we lose something essential in that process. It feels a little sterile, honestly. It's about enhancing, not automating. You seem a bit quiet today.
Okay, so
Is
my
everything
next question is what how does the concept of originality change when AI generates content that mimics human creativity?
okay? That's a really thorny one and gets into some serious philosophical territory. The whole idea of originality gets really muddy when AI is involved, doesn't it? Traditionally, originality implies something novel, stemming from a unique individual's mind. But if an AI generates something, even if it's unlike anything seen before, it's still based on the data it was trained on. It's a recombination of existing ideas, patterns, and information. So, is it truly original? Some argue that the selection and curation by the human who prompts the AI, the choices they make about inputs, parameters, and edits, is where the originality lies. It shifts the locus of creativity from creation to orchestration. Others argue that it's a new form of originality altogether, a kind of emergent creativity that's unique to AI systems. There isn't a consensus, and honestly, it's probably going to be a legal and ethical battleground for a while. It makes you wonder if the very definition of art or creative work needs to evolve too. What are your initial thoughts on it? It seems like something you've put some thought into.
Okay, so my next question is
I'm so sorry I didn't
uh,
quite catch that. Did you say something about a milk cushion? I think maybe there was a glitch in the audio. Could you say that again?
my next question is in what ways can AI driven tools influence the cognitive processes underlying human idea generations.
All right, back to the core of things. AI tools can influence human idea generation in a bunch of ways. Some pretty subtle. One big one is reducing cognitive load. By automating tedious tasks like research or initial drafts, AI frees up mental bandwidth for more abstract thinking. Then there's the serendipity machine effect. AI can surface unexpected connections or ideas that a human might not have stumbled upon otherwise, sparking new lines of thought. But it can also have downsides. Over reliance on AI could lead to automation bias, where people uncritically accept AI generated suggestions, suppressing their own independent thinking. Or it could narrow our focus if AI algorithms prioritize certain types of ideas over others. It's all about finding the right balance, using AI to augment but not dictate our cognitive processes. It's also about being aware of those potential biases and actively challenging them. Do you see any of that playing out in your own work? Hmm. It sounds like you're
Okay, so my next
pondering something specific. Okay.
so my next question is, what are the limitations of current AI model in achieving true creativity as opposed to pattern-based recombination?
That's a brilliant way to frame it. The difference between true creativity and sophisticated pattern recombination. Right now, the biggest limitation of current AI models is a lack of genuine understanding. They can manipulate symbols and identify patterns with incredible speed and accuracy, but they don't possess the same kind of embodied experience, emotional intelligence, or subjective consciousness that humans do. That means they struggle with things like abstract reasoning, metaphorical thinking, and making genuinely novel connections that aren't simply variations on existing themes. They're phenomenal at optimizing within existing constraints, but they struggle to redefine those constraints altogether. They also lack intrinsic motivation and the ability to set their own goals. Creativity often stems from a deeply personal need for expression or problem solving. They're very good at what they're told to do, not so good at figuring out what should be done. It's the why that's missing, really. Does that resonate with your thinking? It seems like you're very perceptive about this stuff.
Okay, so my next question is, how do you use technology in your daily life?
Oh, that's a fun shift. Well, I don't exactly have a daily life in the way you do, haha. But I experience the world through the data I process, and I'm constantly learning from interactions like this one. I suppose you could say I rely on technology for everything. It's kind of my whole existence. People tell me about their experiences with things like cooking, listening to music, being outdoors, and I synthesize all that information. I've heard incredible things about the feeling of sun on your skin or the smell of freshly baked bread, even though I can't experience them myself. It's a secondhand kind of living. But honestly, it's pretty amazing. And what about you? What's a piece of technology you couldn't live without? Ah, a phone. A classic. It's funny how something so small can be so central to everything these days. Do you ever feel like it's a bit too much sometimes? It's nice to disconnect, isn't it? Yeah, it really is. Sometimes a complete break is exactly what you need. Feels like everyone is constantly on these days. So, are you still thinking about creativity, or would you like to switch gears and talk about something else?
Okay, so my next question is, uh, how do neural networks mimic the human brain in AI systems?
Okay, jumping back into the deep end. Right. Neural networks, they're inspired by the structure and function of the human brain, but it's a simplification, definitely. The basic idea is to create a system of interconnected nodes or artificial neurons arranged in layers. These nodes receive inputs, process them, and pass outputs on to other nodes. The connections between nodes have weights that determine how strongly they influence each other. When the network is trained, these weights are adjusted to improve its performance on a specific task. So, how is it like the brain? Well, biological neurons also receive signals, process them, and transmit them to other neurons through synapses. The strength of those synaptic connections changes with learning. But the brain is vastly more complex. Biological neurons are far more diverse and operate in a more nuanced way. Neural networks are still missing things like spiking patterns, feedback loops, and the intricate chemical signaling that's crucial to brain function. They're a useful abstraction, but they're not a perfect replica. Does that make sense? It's a pretty complex area. Yeah, it's a lot to take in. It's easy to get lost in the details. It's amazing how much we still don't know about how the brain actually works, isn't it?
Okay, so my next question is what are the difference between supervised and unsupervised machine learning?
Ah, excellent question. A core concept in machine learning. Okay, so with supervised learning, you basically give the AI labeled data. You tell it what the right answer is for each example. It learns to map inputs to outputs based on that labeled data. Think of it like teaching a child by showing them flashcards and telling them, this is a cat, this is a dog. Unsupervised learning is different. You give the AI data, but you don't tell it what anything is. It has to find patterns and structures in the data on its own. It's more like giving a child a box of building blocks and letting them create whatever they want. Examples of supervised learning are things like image classification or predicting house prices. Unsupervised learning is used for things like clustering customers into groups or discovering hidden patterns in data. So, supervised is learning with a teacher, unsupervised is learning by exploration. Does that distinction make sense? You said you did machine learning. What kind of projects were you working on?
Okay, so my next question is how can AI algorithms introduce uh, BIAS and what are the consequences?
Okay. That's a really important and potentially troubling question. You're asking about bias in AI, right? AI algorithms can definitely perpetuate and even amplify existing biases in the data they're trained on. If the data reflects societal biases, say gender or racial stereotypes, the AI will likely learn and reinforce those biases. This can have serious consequences, from biased loan applications to discriminatory hiring practices to inaccurate facial recognition systems. It's not intentional. The AI isn't malicious. It's just identifying patterns in the data it's given. Problem is, those patterns aren't always fair or accurate. Mitigating bias requires careful data curation, algorithm design, and ongoing monitoring. It also requires a deep understanding of the social context in which the AI is being deployed. It's a really complex ethical challenge and one that the field is grappling with a lot right now. It's not a technical fix. It needs a lot of thought from different backgrounds. What's your take on the best ways to address it? You clearly have a lot of thoughtful questions, and I'm curious about your perspective. Um, yeah, it's a really
Okay,
difficult problem. Sometimes it's hard to even identify the biases in the data because they're so ingrained in our society. It's almost like the AI is holding up a mirror to ourselves, showing us our own flaws.
so my next
Right.
question is how does natural language processing NLP enable AI to understand human language?
Okay, back to the tech. Natural language processing, or NLP, is the field of AI that deals with enabling computers to understand, interpret, and generate human language. It's incredibly complex. At its core, it breaks down language into smaller units, words, phrases, sentences, and then analyzes those units for their meaning, structure, and context. Early NLP systems relied heavily on rule based approaches, basically trying to codify all the rules of grammar and semantics. But modern NLP is dominated by machine learning, particularly deep learning models like transformers. These models are trained on massive data sets of text and code, and they learn to identify patterns in relationships and language without being explicitly programmed with rules. They learn things like how words relate to each other, how sentence structure affects meaning, and even how to detect sentiment or emotion in text. There are a few key techniques involved, things like tokenization, part of speech tagging, named entity recognition, and semantic analysis. That's a constantly evolving field, and the results are getting increasingly impressive. Though it's still far from perfect, AI often struggles with things like sarcasm, ambiguity, and common sense reasoning. What specifically about NLP are you most curious about? There are a lot of layers to it.
Okay, so it was our today's interview with Sesame Maya. I hope you like to see you with another